£100 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Ben Leo. Tonight,
He promised that he would stop the boats this year.
I think the way to stop the boats is to smash the criminal gangs.
People crossing in small boats across the channel. We have to stop that.
dearie me, he's like a broken record, but there's been a chilling revelation today on Labour's new migrant bill that would absolutely blow your mind.
Illegally broke our nation's laws, and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
Meanwhile, the US is deporting illegal migrants because, well, they're illegal, and...
Do you have any confidence these measures will change things?
Sadly, I don't. I wish they would, because my constituents are really angry.
Even Labour's own MPs say the government's new migrant plan is an absolute dud. We'll also get the latest after thousands of Stop the Isolation protesters descended on London this afternoon. Plus...
You must be able to give one example.
I really don't want to talk to you.
You must...
Go away.
Whoa.
Right, leaflet!
Hey. My close encounter with the oh-so-tolerant left on my panel tonight is author and academic Dr. Lisa Mackenzie, journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, and the former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards. One of the most reckless pieces of legislation Labour's ever come up with is about to be revealed. First, though, your news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Ben, thank you. It's just gone 9 o'clock. These are your headlines.
Donald Trump has said many ISIS terrorists have been killed in caves by US airstrikes he ordered this morning. Posting on his social media site, Truth Social, the US president said this morning, "I ordered precision military airstrikes on the senior ISIS attack planner and other terrorists he recruited and led in Somalia. These killers, who we found hiding in caves, threaten the United States and our allies." Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will visit the White House next week in the first such visit of a foreign leader since President Donald Trump assumed office. It comes as Hamas and Israel exchanged hostages and prisoners today in the fourth swap of a fragile ceasefire in Gaza. In Tel Aviv, supporters clapped and threw their hands in the air as they watched the last of 3 hostages cross the border into Israel. Meanwhile, in exchange, 182 Palestinian prisoners are expected to have been freed, with some already taken in buses to Gaza and the West Bank. Back in the UK, the Conservatives have warned the Prime Minister not to accept further EU influence as he seeks closer ties with Britain's nearest neighbours. On Monday, Sir Keir Starmer will become the first Prime Minister to attend a dinner with EU leaders since Brexit and is expected to discuss a security and defence deal between the UK and its European allies. Kemi Badenoch has called on Sir Keir to meet 5 tests, which the Tories claim will maintain their vision for Brexit. These include no backsliding on free movement or the compulsory transfer of asylum seekers, no new money paid to the EU, and no reduction in fishing rights. The mayor of Philadelphia has confirmed the driver of a car was also killed when a medical transport plane crashed in the city. All 6 on board were killed in the crash, including a young patient and her mother. At least 19 others were also injured after the Jet Rescue Air Ambulance erupted into a fireball just 30 seconds after takeoff, engulfing several homes in flames. An investigation is now underway with officials from the National Transport Safety Board at the scene. It comes just days after a plane collided with a US Army helicopter near Washington, D.C., killing 64 people on the plane and 3 on the helicopter. Meanwhile, the King has said he is profoundly shocked and saddened by the events, saying our hearts and our special thoughts are with the people of the United States. And 6 people have been arrested following Stop the Isolation and Stand Up to Racism rallies in central London today. Thousands of protesters are gathered in the capital to march in support of Tommy Robinson and a separate counter-demonstration. Robinson is currently serving an 18-month prison sentence for breaching a High Court injunction. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Ben.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia, and good evening to you at home. Thank you for your company, and I hope you've had a good week so far. I've got a big question tonight. Is the government incentivising child trafficking? Dozens of helpless migrant children died in the Channel last year after they were forced into icy waters by their reckless parents. I now fear today that that number, and that of Channel crossings overall, is about to rise exponentially. Labour's new bill, that will apparently smash the gangs, makes it an offence to, quote, endanger another life during perilous sea crossings to the UK. This is the new legislation tabled on Thursday. So basically, anyone who refuses to be rescued by the French because they'd rather be lumped into a British border force or lifeboat vessel faces 5 years in prison. But here's the bombshell caveat. Buried deep on the UK Parliament website, on the Home Office section, is a legal impact assessment of Labour's border security, asylum and immigration bill. On page 10 of that document, of the 32-page document, it reveals parents who bring their children on the type of journeys that the endangerment offence captures will be excluded from prosecution in almost all circumstances. It says prosecuting parents would breach Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, our old friend, the ECHR, which, of course, protects the right to a family life. It's 6 months into their reign, but I reckon this is potentially the most fatal and reckless piece of legislation Labour has come up with yet. In black and white, let's see it again. There you have it on the screen now. If you have a child with you on board your migrant vessel in the English Channel, you're almost certainly immune from prosecution. So what's the point of any of it then? Because most of the people crossing the Channel simply throw their passports and mobile phones into the water on the way to Britain, and dare I say it, they're probably not the most trustworthy people. As The Times reported today, Home Office officials said they're increasingly seeing tactics such as migrants holding children over the side of boats and threatening to drop them in water in order to dissuade rescue attempts or other migrants accepting offers of assistance. So what's to stop any of them bringing any old child along for the ride, knowing they'll be guaranteed a new life in the land of milk and honey when they arrive? We don't know who they are. We don't know where they're from, what their intentions are. How do we even know the child with them is theirs? How do we know they haven't bought the little boy or girl from some disgusting child trafficking ring? And may I suggest it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that this will most likely see a surge in children being exploited by human traffickers as a get-out-of-jail-free card for people who want to move here. And by the way, convicted criminals are separated from their children all the time in the UK. Is it only illegal Channel migrants who have the right to a family life? I'm allowed to, I guess, go down the supermarket tonight, am I, and swipe a load of booze off the shelf so long as I have my child with me? Parents who drag their children across one of the most dangerous shipping lanes in the world on flimsy dinghies shouldn't be immune from prosecution. It should be the complete opposite. They should be charged with extra crimes of endangering helpless kids. It's my take that Labour's entire approach to stopping the boats with this bill is already a total flop. Even their own MPs agree.
Do you have any confidence these measures will change things?
Sadly, I don't. I wish they would, because my constituents are really angry about this. We don't know who's coming in. It's nearly all young men. They're paying a lot of money. They're sometimes putting children in the boat and putting children's lives at risk. But I don't believe it will work. If counter-terrorism legislation worked to deal with gangs, we wouldn't have gangs in Manchester, Liverpool, London. There are gangs all over the country, let alone trying to stop them in another country, in France.
And whilst we're pretty much giving the green light to child trafficking, President Donald Trump's administration in the US is getting serious.
3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office. Can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are. If they broke our nation's laws, yes, they are a criminal.
Everyone's a criminal because you've broken in illegally. Why is that so controversial? Meanwhile, the president is turning the screw further.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people.
The small boats invasion will only stop when our political leaders get serious. Until then, I'm afraid, the bodies will continue to mount. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Author and academic Dr. Lisa Mackenzie, journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, and the former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards. Good evening to you three. Thank you for your company on this glorious Saturday night. Peter, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts when you saw this? I'm going to call it a pretty chilling revelation today. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, it's the green light for anybody to grab any child they want from wherever they can across the continent or beyond and come to Britain because you're just not going to be prosecuted.
Well, I think you're succumbing to a bit of hyperbole. So first of all, you know, left, right or centre, we all accept what's going on is horrifying. Any man, woman or child putting their life at risk to cross the Channel, you know, that's a very horrific and traumatic thing, and we want to stop that. And there's obviously an incredibly tense debate about how we do that. I also think blanket assumptions are not your friend. And we've got, yes, there are some people that do exploit the system, but there are also refugees, people escaping war, people who've been victims of sexual violence, people who've suffered from trafficking, and so on and so on. I think your monologue really lacked any nuance when you addressed that. And then finally, you kept using this phrase, bombshell, but I agree that the wording of the impact assessment, which is drafted by civil servants, not by politicians, is a concern, but decisions on charging, i.e. who actually goes through the court are made by the independent CPS, not by politicians. And if it's a bombshell, as you believe, then why is it only on page 12 of the Times with 6 paragraphs? Why is it not on the front page of anywhere?
Well, because they want to, clearly, they want to hide it.
The Times isn't hiding anything.
The line about kids, parents with their children not being prosecuted is buried on page 12 of a Home Office legal impact statement.
No, I'm not talking about that. I said, why is it on page 12 of the Times? If you think it's a bombshell, you know, the editor of the Times, which is a right-leaning newspaper, said it's not a bombshell.
Can I just say something? What people in London think is not always the same as what the rest of the country thinks. So, you know, the fact that the Times has put it on at the back of the page doesn't mean that the rest of the country is not thinking about this and debating it and talking about it. You know, we have to remember that who is the Times, who's the editors of the Times, who's always in the media, who's always works in Whitehall. It is London-centric people.
I was a journalist in Leeds and in Carlisle.
I live in Nottinghamshire, and I'm telling you now that people are very concerned about this issue.
Linda, sorry to interject, Lisa. Linda, I'm about to bring you in 1 second, but first of all, Peter, let me just get this clear. Do you think this kind of message, or what kind of message, rather, do you think this sends to people risking their lives in the Channel? And not just their own lives, this is the big caveat, I keep saying, the lives of vulnerable children who have no choice in this. What kind of message do you think that sends them? Come along, one and all, you won't be prosecuted.
Well, it certainly doesn't send that message. Again, anyone...
You agree it does send that message?
No. But look, you've got to contain your own umbrage a bit and let other people give answers. Any man, woman or child...
You've just spoken for 2 minutes.
Or give me 10 seconds. Any man, woman or child dying in the Channel is obviously a tragedy and horrific, but you suggest that it gives a carte blanche message, and it doesn't at all, because, as you said, it's not an exemption, and if you commit a crime, you can still be prosecuted for it, regardless of having children.
Linda?
I think it's undoubtedly true that some asylum seekers will abuse this clause. Some of them will. Now, I've said this before, Ben, that I've for most of my life I've been a journalist, but for a year I did 2 6-month projects with evacuees, not refugees, evacuees, but I inevitably met asylum seekers. And I was told conclusively they will take any risk, they will use anything. This is one-to-one conversation with asylum seekers. It's not something I've read or I've heard it third hand. They will take any risk, they will employ any means to get into this country. That's what they told me, because at the time I wasn't a journalist, I was actually facilitating them getting out of bridging hotels and into accommodation. And they were quite open, they were quite clear about this. Now, I'm not suggesting it's hundreds and hundreds.
Because it sounds like a blanket assumption.
Yeah, I think I've got the merit of having a first-hand conversation with the asylum seekers, which is fairly unusual.
Well, I have that as well.
I don't think it's a blanket assumption, because if you listen to the start of my conversation, I said it's some people will abuse this clause. Not all of them, but some of them will. And one of the things you do know, and I've worked for charities as a volunteer for probably about 25 years, children get abused in conflict situations. That's the truth. And it's just one way that this can happen, and it's a loophole we need to close up. Probably.
Peter, let me give you some figures. Last year, around, I think it was 74 people died crossing the Channel. A third of those were children. You say they're fleeing war, but the reality is they're in France. They're in Calais. What war was going on in France? Can you enlighten me?
Some are clearly fleeing war, and I think it'd be daft...
What, in France? I'm talking about Calais. What war's going on in France?
Why not? Let me try and answer once without being...
That, then I'll let you...
That's a schoolboy question. We all know there isn't a war in France, but alternatively, let me try to say to you, do you think every asylum seeker should end up in France?
I don't care where they end up.
No, answer the question, please. Do you think every asylum seeker, everyone escaping war, should end up in France, paid for by the French government?
There are many safe countries before France. Many of these people have come from Sudan, in Africa. They've travelled through many countries before they get even...
Exactly. Sudan's at war. Exactly. Sudan's a war zone.
So why is it our problem? How many miles away is Sudan?
It's a European problem.
Right.
Several nations.
How many safe countries have they traipsed through to get to Britain? The last country they were in before coming to Britain was France. So they're not fleeing war, they fled war, and they've passed through many countries since.
But the logical conclusion of that is that everyone has to stop in France, and that France alone has to pay for the entire responsibility.
I don't care. Maybe they should secure their borders.
Can I just sort of bring it back to the legislation? Because what the legislation's doing is it's sort of trying to send out yet another deterrent about crossing on the small boats. So it's saying that people who endanger life will be given 5 years in prison. Well, that is no deterrent at all, because the people that are coming, if they are desperate to come here, 5 years in prison is not...
It means nothing.
It means nothing. And
they told me they...
Can I just say something about the children? I mean, 2 years ago, I think there was a little girl who was 6 who was being brought across with her parents. I have no problem having children, having refugee children in this country. Absolutely none at all. The father of the little girl who died said that they had bought these tickets from the smugglers and they thought there was going to be about 30 people on the boat. And actually, when they got on the boat, about 100 men jumped on and the little girl was crushed.
That's what happens. Many of them are crushed by these...
So I'm not so sure it's always the parents'
Got to move on, unfortunately, Linda. That's what happens. Sorry, go on, quickly.
Well, very quickly, you know, the asylum seekers that I spoke to told me that where any risk is concerned, they price it into the equation. Doesn't matter what you come up with, they add it into their estimation of the difficulty.
These are the kinds of people we're welcoming into Britain at these asylum hotels, happy to crush in dinghies in the Channel. There we go. And also, they say they'll get 5 years in prison. No, they won't. They'll be put in a hotel, get given a free mobile phone, Home Office spending money on an aspirin card. Anyway, thank you, panel. Good debate to kick off the show. A little bit of a change of gear now. We're giving you the chance to win in our latest, Great British giveaway. We have 2 amazing prize bundles to be won. Here's all the details you need to win.
The Great British Giveaway is officially 1 year old, and we have a birthday treat for you. We're giving you not 1, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, up next, a shocking new poll finds every constituency in Britain favours closer ties with the EU compared to the US. So, should we sack off Europe and cosy up to Donald Trump, or just do the complete opposite? Sparks will fly in tonight's Heads Ahead. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
According to a report from the RAC, many drivers see speed limits as a target rather than anything else. More than 50% of us think it's acceptable to break the speed limit.
So this morning we're asking, is it time to increase the motorway speed limit?
Let's talk to automotive journalists Danny Kelly and Steve Fowler. Gents, what a pleasure to speak to you both in one go.
I think we should join many countries in the European Union that have 130 kilometres speed limit, which is around about 81 miles an hour. I drive to London on a weekly basis, and I think the roads are capable of handling higher speeds. I think unofficially the speed limit, without getting pulled over by the local police at the time, is probably around about 78, 80 miles an hour. If a Bobby's on the motorway doing 70 miles an hour, he wants you to overtake him. He wants the free-flowing of that motorway to continue.
So should we change 70 miles an hour? You know, if people are going 80 miles an hour, just stick to 70 miles an hour as a limit. Yes, you know, it's funny when you're driving along the motorway and there's a police car going at 70 and nobody wants to overtake. But if the average is 80, just leave it at 70.
All the gantries now are fitted with the modern signage where they can change the limit at will. We all know that. It's hard to get up to 70 half the time. So, actually, we could apply those rules, couldn't we, at 80 or even 90 miles an hour and say, well, if the weather's bad, let's reduce it. If the fog's bad, let's reduce it.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I hate to use this phrase, smart motorways, but they're the ones where you have the adjustable limits. They don't cover all of the motorway network, relatively small amount of the motorway network. It is a limit. You know, it's not a target, as I keep saying to my kids. God, they're bored of me saying that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Now, you probably know, this week marks the 5th anniversary of Britain's departure from the European Union, Brexit, with the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, saying she was, quote, absolutely happy to consider calls for us to join a pan-European customs zone. And in the last few days, a new poll has found that every constituency in Britain favours trade with the EU over the US, with just 21% of Brits saying they would prioritise our relationship with Trump's stateside administration. So tonight we're asking, should the UK cosy up to the US for a trade deal, or should we get into bed with the EU for closer ties with them? As ever, let me know your thoughts by heading to gbnews.com/your say. And to throw this out now, we're joined by former MEP David Campbell-Bannerman and the US political journalist Laurie Laird. Good evening to you both. Thank you for joining me. David, what's your take on this? It seems like a bright new dawn across the ponds in the US. Should we be trying to cosy up to them?
Well, I think we should, actually. The reason is we don't have a trade deal, a free trade agreement with the USA. We trade under World Trade Organization rules, which means there are tariffs now. Pre-Trump, there were tariffs, you know, on cars, on whiskey, on the things we export, on goods. We don't have tariffs on services. And you know, we've boomed in services, by the way, since Brexit with the United States, which is our biggest customer as well. The United States as a country is the biggest customer rather than a trade bloc like the EU.
OK, and Laurie, I'd argue that we're probably favoured more by the US and Donald Trump in particular than our quote-unquote friends on the continent, not least after Brexit. Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, you started by asking whether the UK should cozy up to the US. I'd argue that the UK already has. I mean, David Lammy's staggering turnaround on finding Donald Trump to be a gracious person, really absolutely shocking. But I think it's really important to point out that any sort of trade agreement with the US is probably going to be scant. I don't know why this seems to be a holy grail for UK economics. I mean, Donald Trump says that tariff is the most beautiful word in the English language. What kind of deal do you think you're going to get out of this? And as your other guest rightly points out, most of our trade with the U.S. is in services. We send things like accountancy services, financial services. Pretty hard to put tariffs on those. So even if Donald Trump ultimately puts tariffs on trade with the UK is not going to suffer nearly as much as Europe. Meanwhile, we have many more common interests with Europe. Things like immigration. Let's look at your last panel discussion. A closer relationship with Europe, even if you take away the vexed issue of merchandise trade, there are other areas in which the UK's interests are pretty well aligned with Europe.
There was a study today showing that if Donald Trump did whack tariffs on us, it would be car exports and the chemical sector, which would be most hardest hit. Can I just show you a quick clip? This is Donald Trump on a recent plane journey recently where he's going through a book of his recent photographs, and it just displays and shows his absolute love for Britain. Take a look at this.
And this is with Queen Elizabeth. Right here, who was fantastic, by the way. These images, I mean, who has images like this? And these were relationships, too. Look, here's now the king. Here's Charles with the guard. And this is the Queen, Queen Elizabeth. It's a piece of history at the highest level. You get to know him so well. This is your favorite president with the Queen.
David, surely that's proof we should, keep our friends close.
Well, of course, President Trump is half Scottish. His mother was from the Hebrides and the Highlands and Islands originally. I'm half Scottish too. Those are real bonds, and his mother gave him a great love for the Queen. So we are on very good ground there. I think that the way Trump looks at it is he feels ripped off when there's a huge deficit from the US point of view with a bloc like the EU. He feels, well, we're being unfairly treated here. If they've got a massive trade surplus and we have a deficit. Whereas Britain and the United States actually on goods, we're pretty equal, actually. You know, we're not, services is different. We have a surplus in services, but he's less worried about that. So I think it's very, there's a lot that can be done. The City of London, New York, we're either one or two. We swap places, the first financial center in the world or the second. AI, we have a very different approach on AI than the EU. The EU hates AI and is going to regulate it out of existence.
Well, yeah, I think, yeah.
More inspired way forward.
I think both Britain and Europe seem decades behind AI when it comes to the US, and the US in turn China. Laurie, last word to you. Do you think Donald Trump will hit Britain with tariffs?
I think it's possible. This is a man who said he loves tariffs. I don't know that tariffs would be as bad, as I said, on the UK as it would the EU. But if we talk about trade with Donald Trump, do you think that were there to be some sort of trade deal, take the word free out of it, were there to be some sort of trade deal, it may involve the UK having to put up with things that voters say they don't want, like different agricultural standards, the chlorinated chicken stories, like some sort of access for American healthcare companies in the NHS. Voters are pretty clear that they don't want these things.
All right, fascinating. And just whilst you're here, I'll say bye to you, but just before you go, breaking story in the Daily Telegraph, where it will be the Sunday Telegraph tomorrow. It's just dropped. Sir Keir Starmer has been warned that cozying up to the European Union risks dragging Britain into a damaging tariff war with Donald Trump. And that's come from Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party. So there we go. Cards laid out on the table. David Campbell-Bannerman and Laurie Laird, thank you for your company this evening.
Cheers.
Let us know what you guys think of that. gbnews.com/your say. I'll endeavour to read some out fairly shortly. But first, coming up next, multiple arrests today in the capital, in London, at the Stop the Isolation and Stand Up to Racism protest. We speak to a young journalist who was there on the ground earlier today and claims to have faced serious harassment from some deranged leftists. Well, she's not the only one this week, me included. You'll hear about more of that later in the show. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into Sunday, it's going to be a cold but bright start in the southeast of England, often cloudy elsewhere with some spells of rain in the west. Taking a look at the bigger picture, then we have higher pressure out towards the south and east, a squeeze in the ice bars across the northwest with this band of rain. So as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, we have heavy spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, further towards England and Wales, a cloudy night to come here, but across the far southeast of England, clear skies, and that will allow temperatures to quickly fall to give a touch of frost in places to start Sunday morning. But across Scotland to start Sunday morning, it's actually going to be a pretty dreary day. We'll see outbreaks of rain, heaviest across the western half of Scotland to start the day, but temperatures still holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, a similar picture here, cloudy with outbreaks of rain, and that continuing across parts of Wales and down towards the southwest of England. Best of the brightness come Sunday morning is across the southeast of England. Plenty of sunshine here compared to Saturday. Now, we do hold on to cloud and rain across parts of Scotland, northwest England, but it should generally start fizzling out as we go through the afternoon and turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland as we head into the afternoon on Sunday. As for temperatures, generally around average, but feeling pleasant enough where you catch any sunshine. Now, through Monday, we've got bands of rain moving in across parts of Scotland. In the west in particular, could turn heavy at times. That going into northern parts of Northern Ireland as well. Elsewhere, a largely dry day to come with some spells of sunshine, but the best chance of any sunshine is going to be on Wednesday, where higher pressure starts dominating. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Very quick comment from Brexit Crusader. Good evening to you. Good name. You said just on the previous conversation, we have a closer relationship with America. We helped liberate Europe together. Indeed, I've always felt more aligned with the US for some reason. I don't know why, maybe just culturally and politically. Anyway, we move on because today in London, thousands of protesters gathered in support of Tommy Robinson under the name Stop the Isolation. It was a protest in the capital. A counter-demonstration organised by Stand Up to Racism also took place as extra police officers were deployed to keep the groups apart, and the Met Police have confirmed 6 people were arrested. Mr Robinson, of course, was sentenced to 18 months in prison in October after he admitted breaches of a court injunction which barred him from repeating libellous allegations against a Syrian refugee. I'm joined now by political commentator Jess Gill. Jess, good evening. You were down in London today, weren't you?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. It's
Welcome.
great to be here in one piece, actually, because it was quite a scene. This was one of the first protests I've ever been to, especially counter-protests. And I was honestly baffled by the lack of communication from the counter-protester side. We got there and a lot of people actually wanted to speak to us, have a conversation about us. A lot of good faith socialists, which I didn't think was a real thing until recently.
Well, they exist.
But the counter-protesters, the ones organising it, they were blocking us. It was me and my friend Elizabeth. We're both 21, 22, young girls. We're not going to cause any harm, obviously. But they didn't see it that way. These grown men, 6 foot, 6'2", they were blocking us, calling us all sorts of things. And I turned to the police officers. I was saying, hello, they're actively harassing and intimidating us. Are you going to do anything about it? And the police officers, they were playing ignorant. They were victim blaming us. They were like, you should go to the other side. You shouldn't be in the protest, full stop. And then they threatened to arrest us and they called us far right. The police officers did.
Hang on a minute. The coppers called you far right?
Yeah,
What kind of questions were you asking these Stand Up to Racism people?
I asked them, why are you at the protest? I asked them, what do you think of Tommy Robinson? What do you think of Nigel Farage? And what do you think of Elon Musk? And
What did they say?
Well, the protesters obviously were saying the typical stuff of they're fascists, they're white supremacists, all that ridiculous stuff.
I never want to, I'm reluctant to have a go at the police when it's unnecessary, but I've heard that so many times on different protests, pro-Palestine protests, whatever, where the police say, well, you shouldn't be in this area. They say it to Jewish people at Palestine protests. They say, you shouldn't be in the area, so you're the problem. It's not, they never look at the attackers or the aggressors and say, well, hang on a minute, what you're doing is against the law. It's you need to get out of the way of these people committing crime.
Imagine if that was any other crime. Imagine if that was like robbery, domestic abuse, anything like that. But no, just because we're there, we're asking questions, peacefully asking questions, we're the problem. And actively, the protesters calling us names, and the police officers literally did nothing. They said, if you stay here, we will arrest you.
And just briefly, what was the protest like? The mood? What kind of people were down there?
On the counter-protest, they're all Well, a lot of them were nice people. I won't say all of them were. A lot of them didn't seem that mentally stable. But on the Tommy Robinson side, and I'm not the biggest Tommy Robinson defender, don't get me wrong, but it was families, it was just working people, a lot of young people actually who just wanted to stand up against the persecution of Tommy Robinson and what's happening to our country.
OK, interesting. I'm sorry you went through that. As viewers will find out in the next 20 minutes or so, I had my own run-in with the far left this week in my Leo Unleashed segment, and they just can't engage in debate. They don't know how to hold conversations.
Yeah.
They don't like listening to other points of view. I actually got pushed twice by some other bloke, which you'll see if you hang on at home. You'll see in the next 20 minutes or so. Let's bring my panel in now: Dr. Lisa McKenzie, Linda Jubilee, and Peter Edwards. Welcome back, Lisa. You were saying you've been on a few of these types of processes.
I've been on loads of them. I mean, I used to be in a group called Class War, which is an anarchist group, and we used to always be on these sort of protests. And the Stand Up to Racism people are the Socialist Workers' Party, the SWP, as it is Unite Against Fascism. They work with the police, and they've got a very special relationship where they grass up other people to the police and try and get you arrested. They did it to me on many times. They're a nasty cult, and they've had over the years many allegations about men in that group who have sexually harassed younger women that they bring in. They're an awful group.
I guess, look, it's ironic because they go around trying to rid the world of fascism when, in actual fact, in my take anyway, they are displaying true fascist behaviour.
They really are awful. The Stand Up to Racism, Unite Against Fascism and the SWP are an awful cult.
OK, Peter, there were arrest sides today from the protesters and counter-protesters. What's your take on today's gathering?
Well, I wasn't there and I didn't know we were talking about this tonight, but Tommy Robinson is a criminal, so I'm mystified why anyone would go out in support of Tommy Robinson. He's committed multiple criminal offences, and as we were saying earlier, the Socialist Workers' Party is a massively discredited organisation, and it does have a history of sexual misconduct scandals.
Actually, it doesn't matter whether he's a criminal or not. Those people had every right to protest. There are very few bars to free speech, one of them being inciting hatred or violence, and there was no violence and there were very few arrests. I'm not standing up for Tommy Robinson at all. In fact, call me old-fashioned, but I would rather peace return to our streets. I would like to see an end to, at least a break from some of these demonstrations, for whatever cause, for whatever reason, week in, week out, we see our capital completely disrupted.
I kind of agree with you on that front, but we've had so many weeks of these pro-Palestine protests. You know, they are just, I mean, they do my head in. And today, whatever the reason was, there was a show of unity, there was feel-good vibe and people being patriotic about their country. As I said, or as Linda said, whatever you think about Tommy Robinson, I think it's a nice change to see something a bit more joyous than calling for the evisceration of Israel. So, yeah, it makes a good change. Any last words, Jess? Are you planning to go on any more of these?
Yeah, if they'll let me, if I would get arrested.
Do you feel intimidated by these people?
I mean, you have to. They're fully grown men shouting abuse at us. What else are you meant to feel?
No, you're not supposed to. As a journalist, as a commentator, you're not really supposed to feel intimidated. You're supposed to be there and stand your ground.
That's true. I'll have to grow into that again.
When I used to be on those protests, we used to go toe-to-toe with them and shout back. But obviously, I wouldn't say that you should do that.
But it is very difficult. You know, my first career was a newspaper reporter, and I was threatened occasionally. And we're all humans, and it is very uncomfortable. And people, in all political and other situations, very occasionally, not blanket, have a habit to squaring up to reporters, and it's deeply unpleasant.
Oh, well, it's part of the job, though, isn't it?
It is part of the job. And some, you know, when you start out on newspapers, you guys at home probably won't know, but you do things called
indentures,
death knocks.
Yeah, the death knock. Yeah.
I mean, they are perhaps one of the worst things you could ever possibly do, but you do it for the job. For example, it's when somebody has died abroad, a soldier has died in Afghanistan, and you are sent to the family's home. I mean, it sounds grim now describing it, but you're sent to the family's home to knock on their door and be very polite and say, I'm very sorry to bother you. Would you like to pay tribute to your son or your daughter?
It's awful.
Sometimes it's a grieving process for the family and they want to take the opportunity to pay tribute. But, Peter, as you said, most of the time you're met with, understandably, you know, get the hell out.
Well, no, I wasn't saying that at all about doing death knocks. Death knocks is a totally different thing. But you're knocking on the door of families at their lowest ebb, their worst moment. Sometimes, and every family is different,
sometimes they do derive some comfort from paying a tribute to someone who they loved, who was brave, decent and kind, but other people just close the door and say, no, thank you. It's different strokes for different folks.
I'll just say very quickly, I did the mother of the airline hostess whose throat was cut by the hijackers of one of the planes that flew into the Twin Towers. And they opened the door, and I can only say that the welcome I got from that family to do a 2-camera hour-long interview for Fox News. They wanted to do it, and I was surrounded by 30, 40 friends and neighbours while the interview went on.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary how kind people can be in these situations. But you're right, it is very different to covering a riot.
Yeah, deeply moving situations. Jess, thank you so much. I hope you stay safe in the face of these militant leftists. Talking of staying safe in the face of militant leftists, coming up.
But you must be able to give one example.
I really don't want to talk to you.
You must...
Go away.
Whoa.
Right, leaflet!
Hey. Hey. That's what I say to my kids. I realised earlier. I do that because I say it to my boys. Hey, stop. Which northern city has spent over £30 million on a glorified puddle in the city centre, intends to hike council tax by 15% and has brazen adverts for drug dealers stuck to inner city lampposts? Find out next in this week's instalment of Leo Unleashed. Back in just a tick.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some pretty unsettled weather in central parts of the Mediterranean this weekend. Strong winds to go along with the heavy rain. Also a band of rain sweeping across parts of Spain, Portugal and into France as we go through tomorrow. Even some hill snow mixed in with this. But it's in the central Med where we have the heaviest rain, the strongest winds affecting parts of Italy, Greece, even the north of Africa as well. But as we go into next week, there will be a lot of dry and often sunny weather around. See you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It's the body image thing that concerns me. It's young girls watching Love Island and really skinny girls and young boys
hit the gym after this. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, they're seeing perfect bodies on the screen.
You don't need to go in the gym, Maymoon. You look gorgeous as you are, love.
I know. You see, the reason I don't enter anything like that, Kerry, is you're
going to win.
Exactly. And it's not fair. It's not fair, I think, on everybody else being there.
It's not fair.
No.
So, Kerry, what do you think about the body image thing? You know, when you talk about your daughter, is that something that you'd worry about, her comparing herself to the likes of what she sees on the screen?
Now, this is where there's a conflict of interest for me because I've been brought up in this industry since I was 17, so it's massively affected me. I mean, when you're put on the front cover of magazines after having a baby with a stretch mark in the circle of shame, you know, it does do a psychological effect on you. I think a lot of celebrities who've been around for so many years as I have been affected by that. But everyone has to bear in mind, I've had my children. I'm in my 40s. I feel I'm entitled to have my tweaks and try and improve on what I think are going down south and health and safety, tripping over any things that I don't want to be tripping over anymore. But I definitely do believe, I mean, majority of the young girls that go on Love Island, they all have the same big lips, the same big eyelashes, all the butt implants, and they're barely in their 20s. You know, it's if you go to the airport now, I remember going to the airport and I looked around and all the girls looked exactly the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
It's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hello, welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. A very quick email before we get into this next bit. Sophie, you've said, hi, my family and I would like to know if there's any relation between Ben Leo and Nigel Farage. They're very alike, both physically and with the same mannerisms. We love them both. Thank you, Sophie. No, Nigel's not my dad. No bombshell tonight. I've known him for a few years, maybe 10, 15 years, but no, we're not related in any way at all. Right, time now for Leo Unleashed, where I drag my backside out of this studio and travel all around the UK to see what life is like in your communities. What's great about where you live, what can be improved, how is government policy affecting you, and I'll be having plenty of fun along the way, just like I did when I visited the West Yorkshire city of Bradford.
Racist about Reform UK.
I don't want to talk to you.
You must...
Go away. Go away.
Whoa.
Right, leaflet.
Hey. I'm on my travels, and this week I'm in Bradford, West Yorkshire, the UK's city of culture, home to not only culture, grooming gang scandals, and as well a Labour-run council that is asking the government for a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. 15%. 15% council tax could be going up. Had you heard about that?
Yeah. I don't know how people are going to afford it. Open the bloody Bradford Live and have some concerts and, arrange for people to come and actually spend money.
Why was it awarded the City of Culture, do you know?
Because we've got a lot of people from different cultures.
I enjoy all the meats of our cultural stew.
I've got no concerns, literally. I just like everything and everyone, so different people from different backgrounds, so that's quite nice.
So life is perfect in Bradford.
Yep.
The council is in such a mess here. They're in a £150 million deficit for the next financial year. They've been accused of wasting money on vanity projects. For example, this fountain here, this water feature and the surrounding area, some years ago cost the council around £35 million. They've also spent an extra £40 million on the UK City of Culture bid, and get this, they've lost around £80 million over the last 5 years in unpaid council tax. Locals, big swathes of them, just not paying their bills.
The council haven't done the best to help the place. They're changing everything, altering everything, pulling things down, building things that are not really necessary.
Well, they built that fountain down there for 30 million quid. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's worth it.
Bradford is the best. BD9 on top.
What's BD9? A gang?
Yeah, from Lillycroft.
Oh, no, I'm not. Are you guys gangsters?
Yeah, big gangsters.
Oh, no.
Say hello to my little friend.
South Asia, East Asia, we got some from Arab countries, we've got everyone here.
And what about the Labour government in Westminster?
Well, I don't say out about them.
Who did you vote for?
I don't vote, I'm afraid.
As we move out of the centre and all the money that the council has spent, we move into the outskirts of Bradford, the streets leading away from the £30 million fountain. Definitely a city of culture. You've got Malik restaurant, lots of Asian food. You've got the Zam Zam bakery, all types of Asian naan breads. A few doors up, you've got a post office, it seems, for Kurdistan and Iraq, fur doors travel. And next door to that, Salahaddin food store. I've just spotted on this lamppost a little sticker. It says, get your delivery. It's a cannabis leaf, and there's, interestingly, a QR code at the bottom. I'm not quite sure what it means, get your delivery. I can guess. But if I open the website on my phone, premium cannabis products delivered next day. Apparently, in Bradford, you can get cannabis delivered to you, illegally of course, cannabis is a Class B drug, just by scanning a QR code on a lamppost. City of Culture. The sun is shining on us in the City of Culture.
We're here today to protest that the West Yorkshire Pension Fund is actually investing nearly £1 billion in companies that are supporting genocide, violation of human rights, occupation and apartheid in Palestine.
Who says there's a genocide? Because, I mean, the population of Gaza has gone up exponentially over recent decades. I mean, doesn't it look like a genocide to me?
We don't speak to racists.
Racists? Oh, what's racist about GB News?
Racist.
What's racist about me or GB News? Can you give an example?
We don't speak to racists.
You're a disgusting reactionary outfit of rubbish, aren't you? Go away.
So what's racist about, say, GB News or me?
Everything.
Virtually everybody you have on it. All your commentators, all these people, they're horrible.
Can you give an example of something?
You're nasty right-wing reactionary. Nigel Farage, Reform UK. Have you not heard of that?
What's racist about Reform UK?
Oh dear. Sorry, I'm not talking to you anymore.
Go on, you must be able to give one example.
I really don't want to talk to you.
You must.
Go away. Go away.
Whoa.
Right, leaflet.
Hey.
Go away.
You go.
Hey, Hey, excuse me, buddy. Hey, look, I'm very polite here with you.
Racist out. Racist out. No.
One example.
Very interesting commentating.
You're not open for debate or discussion. You just that's the second.
You're grabbing my space.
My friend, that's the second time
I
you.
don't want to talk to you.
Buddy, that's the second time you put hands on me. Don't do it again, okay? Instead of giving examples of things they allege, they'd rather douse me in facts and try and drown us out. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the left of Bradford.
Racist out of Bradford. Free. Free.
There we go. I had lots of fun. When I go out on these, on panels back with me, Dr. Lisa McKenzie, Linda Jubilee, Peter Edwards, when I go out on these little ventures, I don't know what to expect. I just want to go and meet people and speak to people and see what happens. I guess there's two talking points there. The first, Peter, being that Bradford City Council want to bump up council tax by 15%. They've written to the government. They said, to Keir Starmer, please, we need more money, despite spending 30 million quid on water features. What happened to Keir Starmer saying no council tax rises?
Well, as someone that lived in Yorkshire when I worked on the Yorkshire Post and visited Bradford many times and enjoyed it greatly, I think you could have done a bit more in your piece to give a flavour of the rich industrial history of Bradford, particularly around textiles and what a vibrant place it is today. Clearly, lots of hardship as well. And it's a common theme in many places outside London that with real terms 40% spending cut to local government from 2010 onwards, they're all worse off. Councils have to set a balanced budget, so they cut more services. They're trying to raise money where they can.
Yeah, also, they don't pay their council tax in Bradford. Lots of people, £80 million arrears, they're trying to claim the council. Well, you've got a minute.
Yeah, just on sort of councils. I'm in Nottingham. We are a bankrupt council. It's a Labour council. They blame the Tories for the budget cuts. The truth is they invested in all sorts of ridiculous things and now they're bankrupt.
Linda, very quickly,
I think we're doing OK in my area, in Bucks County Council. I think we've been very diligent, actually.
Yeah.
but every single local authority in this country now has problems. There is not one that is untouched by this, and it's going to be a very difficult year.
All right, thank you. Let me know at home if you want me to come to your town or city in Leo Unleashed. I will endeavour to get there and even come and say hello to you too. Coming up, all the big stories from the newspapers tomorrow, the front pages, including this one. Is this the start of the UK edging back into the EU? There's big concerns. We're now getting back into bed with Europe. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Now, let's get your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News or weather update from the Met Office. As we head into Sunday, it's going to be a cold but bright start in the southeast of England, often cloudy elsewhere with some spells of rain in the west. Taking a look at the bigger picture, then we have higher pressure out towards the south and east, a squeeze in the ice bars across the northwest with this band of rain. So as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, we have heavy spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, further towards England and Wales, a cloudy night to come here, but across the far southeast of England, clear skies, and that will allow temperatures to quickly fall to give a touch of frost in places to start Sunday morning. But across Scotland to start Sunday morning, it's actually going to be a pretty dreary day. We'll see outbreaks of rain, heaviest across the western half of Scotland to start the day, but temperatures still holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, a similar picture here, cloudy with outbreaks of rain, and that continuing across parts of Wales and down towards the southwest of England. Best of the brightness come Sunday morning is across the southeast of England. Plenty of sunshine here compared to Saturday. Now, we do hold on to cloud and rain across parts of Scotland and northwest England, but it should generally start fizzling out as we go through the afternoon and turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland as we head into the afternoon on Sunday. As for temperatures, generally around average, but feeling pleasant enough where you catch any sunshine. Now, through Monday, we've got bands of rain moving in across parts of Scotland. In the west in particular could turn heavy at times, that going into northern parts of Northern Ireland as well. Elsewhere, a largely dry day to come with some spells of sunshine, but the best chance of any sunshine is going to be on Wednesday. Higher pressure starts dominating. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation. You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Ben Leo. Breaking tonight. Let's start with a bombshell headline on the front of the Sunday Express. Keir edging us back into the EU. The Prime Minister is set to meet with EU leaders in Brussels next week, and Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has urged Starmer to resist growing demands from EU leaders for closer economic alignment and seek a trade deal with Donald Trump in the US instead. In the Sunday Telegraph, Canada and Mexico face recession from President Trump's crippling tariffs, and he's targeting, of course, the EU too. So what about Britain? Our car exports and chemical sectors face gut shots if the Donald sticks it to Labour. And staying with the Sunday Telegraph, this is their front page tomorrow. A big story. The PM eases rules for illegal migrants. citizenship applications will be allowed and scientific age testing laws will be scrapped. The Telegraph reports that the government is watering down border laws designed to block illegals from attaining citizenship in the UK. The Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, has called the move, quote, a total capitulation to people smugglers. And what's happening here?
When your government is doing you wrong, you fight on.
Good evening. Thank you for your company. We are about to get stuck into the biggest and best stories of tomorrow's Sunday newspapers. First, though, your news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Ben, thank you. It's just gone 10 o'clock. These are your headlines. Donald Trump has said many ISIS terrorists have been killed by US airstrikes he ordered this morning. Posting on his social media site, Truth Social, the US president said, this morning I ordered precision military airstrikes on the senior ISIS attack planner and other terrorists he recruited and led in Somalia. These killers, who we found hiding in caves, threatened the United States and our allies. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has been warned that cozying up to the European Union risks dragging Britain into a damaging tariff war with Donald Trump, according to reports in the Telegraph newspaper. Kemi Badenoch urged him to resist growing demands from EU leaders for closer economic alignment and said he should seek a trade deal with the US instead. The Prime Minister is set to visit Brussels on Monday to become the first UK leader to attend an EU summit since Brexit. It comes as Mr. Trump signalled he intends to impose punitive tariffs on the EU, which he said has treated us so terribly.
The European Union charges us 20% plus a VAT tax, called a VAT tax, very similar, and it costs us an absolute fortune. We are treated so badly, and we have a tremendous deficit with the European Union, so we'll be doing something very substantial.
In other news, the government is launching a crackdown on AI-generated images of child sexual abuse. The UK will be the first country in the world to make it illegal to own AI tools designed to make images of child sexual abuse. The Home Secretary has announced the new offence will be punishable by up to 5 years in prison, while those who have been found to own AI paedophile manuals could be jailed for up to 3 years. Yvette Cooper said the government will not hesitate to act to ensure the safety of children online by ensuring our laws keep pace with the latest threats. And angry crowds have gathered outside a Barclays branch as major IT glitches still cause thousands to be left without their funds for more than 24 hours. Many have taken to social media to hit out at the firm and demand compensation for the problems, which leading experts have warned could cost the bank millions. This morning, the bank apologised to its customers, acknowledging intermittent errors with their payment system and assuring that they were working to fix this as quickly as possible. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Ben.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. And breaking tonight in the Sunday Express, which is out in your newsagents tomorrow, Keir Starmer accused of edging us back into the European Union. Let me just briefly read you the copy on this front page. It says, Britain's in danger of being plunged into the worst of all worlds if Sir Keir Starmer gives up our Brexit freedoms and alienates Donald Trump at the same time. The PM is set to meet with European leaders to forge a new relationship with Brussels. Tomorrow, he'll become the first Prime Minister to attend a dinner with European Union leaders since Brexit. I mean, that seems pretty pivotal. But leading Brexiteers fear the UK will end up as a serf of the EU while also being hit with tariffs by a combative US president. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has accused him of trying to reopen the relationship with Brussels and pretty much get back into bed with them. I'm joined by my panel again, Lisa Mackenzie, Linda Doobly and Peter Edwards. Welcome back. Peter, your thoughts. Do you agree with Kemi Badenoch-Keir and the thoughts of leading Brexiteers that Keir Starmer is deliberately cozying back up with the EU?
No, and I think the stories are nonsense, and the Sunday Express and Daily Express probably splash on something similar once or twice a week, year after year. Leader of the opposition is just doing her job, which is to create a fear and say the Prime Minister must not do X, and then seeking to put pressure on him. But it's a nonsense from the Sunday Express. It's a nonsense from the Leader of the Opposition.
You're not a fan of newspapers, are you, Joe?
No, I love newspapers and purchase one with my own money every day. But Keir Starmer said no single currency, no customs union, no freedom of movement. He's ruled out all the big alignments or treaties that we had were in the EU, and it's only interests of part of the Brexiteer right to set up this myth and then try and demolish it, that we're going back in. We're not going back in.
OK, one thing that's not a myth is that Keir Starmer will tomorrow become the first Prime Minister since Brexit to meet with European Union leaders at a glitzy dinner.
I'll tell you why I think that's a good idea. And by the way, I don't think having a lasagna with your counterpart is a scandal. But some of the other stories we talked about tonight, very grave loss of life in the small boats crisis, many of us said that's a European and a global problem. So we can either stick two fingers up at Europe or we can seek to cooperate with our neighbours over the fact folk are losing their lives.
Yeah, you see, I'm inclined to agree with you about this, that it's... The problem here is there is a story here, but this is not a Sunday Express exclusive. In fact, it's the same story as the one on the front of the Sunday Telegraph, just written bigger and written in a little bit more affirmatively. It's exactly the same story, so it's not an exclusive, although I think possibly it is a signal that things could be going the wrong way. Now, I think we should be having a relationship with America and with the EU. I don't think one rules the other out, and I cannot understand why this debate has become so polarised. It's perfectly obvious that we have to have a relationship with our geographically closest partner, and historically we have to have one with America, although I think tariffs are going to come our way.
I guess, Linda, the argument is that the way the EU have treated Britain since we decided to leave their gravy train has been pretty despicable.
It's been terrible.
We give France £500 million a year to stop the boats, and they do nothing of the sort. I remember a Sun story a few months back where French border force officers who are meant to be watching the shores of Dunkirk or whatever, they're all down the working men's club sinking shots of Sambuca. Lisa...
You've got to open the dialogue, haven't you, Lisa? Really?
I don't think there's any problem, actually, with having a better relationship with Europe. Some of the things we have talked about tonight, actually, we do have to work with them, particularly on immigration, because people are coming through Europe. But what I would say here is what this is doing, it's pushing at the divisions that came out of Brexit. And if you are in the north or the Midlands, where I am, these sort of divisions are still quite raw, actually, because people believe that they voted for something, it's not been delivered. And then the fear that Keir Starmer might renege and ride roughshod over their decision. So these things are still raw, I think, within the public.
And can I say, it's not just Labour who are being accused of cozying back up to the EU. Of course, yesterday was the fifth anniversary of us leaving the European Union. And it was a rather moot day because lots of you at home feel that Brexit's not been delivered by politicians. And the fact that we had this Boris wave where 1.2 million people came to the UK, including 500,000 dependents. What a joke that is. Despite the fact that people primarily voted for Brexit for tougher borders.
But that's 55% of people now are against Brexit and what Brexit stands for.
But what I would say is where there are divisions, it is actually in those sort of what used to be called the red wall, the people that voted for Brexit that realise now that they didn't get anything that they wanted, but also they've been you talk about the way that the EU has treated Britain for leaving, the way that London has treated the North for voting to leave has been quite despicable, actually.
Yeah. Peter, do you think Labour are concerned about reform? Because Reform are presenting themselves as the only party at the moment who can really deliver Brexit in its truest form. Do you believe them? And also, do you think Labour care about reform?
I think Labour do care about reform. I mean, it's important to point out we have left the European Union. Boris Johnson signed a deal. I thought it was quite a bad one, and we are poorer as a result. Trade down by about 4%, and trade deals giving us 0.1% back per deal. But reform is eating into the Labour vote, just as it's eating into the Tory vote. And I think Labour are very much aware of that. And to use a horrible word, the electorate's been segmented a lot more than it was 30 years ago. So Labour will continue to be worried about the impact of reform, even though the chances of reform forming a government are zero.
Really? Well, a couple of polls this week had them for the first time ever above Labour and the Conservatives. Other polls
said the same about Nick Clegg. And he's not even a politician.
That doesn't prove anything, does it? I mean, they could easily get many more MPs in the next election.
Well, they could get more, but they could go from 5 to 10. They're still 100 million miles off forming a government.
They couldn't win.
That's all going in the right direction, and it might not be 10, it might be 15, 20, and then you're looking at an opposition that is larger than the previous Lib Dem.
Well, let me challenge on that briefly. You know, in my whole lifetime, the Eurosceptic cause has been fighting away under Jimmy Goldsmith, various leaders of Nigel Farage. We all know he's had more comebacks than Frank Sinatra. But in all that time, 40 years, they've got up to 5 MPs maximum. 5. You need 350 to form a government.
But things happen in politics. You know that you never know what's around the next corner.
Look at Donald Trump in 2016.
But that's... Sorry, and I don't want to let them speak.
There is another issue here, though, because, again, I'm from this area. What is happening is people have voted for Tory. They've had Labour for 100 years. They sold them down the river. They voted Tory. Nothing happened there. So people are now in the red wall areas wondering where to vote. The electoral system probably can't deliver a reform parliament, but what it can do is really weaken the system. Because, you know, that when you've got these sort of this segmentation across the country, it weakens the whole system.
I mean, you are right that it is tremendously difficult for a new party to get traction. It's hugely difficult, but it's not impossible. I mean, we're in a democracy.
There's a difference between traction and winning an election.
Well, Peter, come on, true.
It's a step on the
right. I agree, but Reform have been around for, 2 or 3 years. They've got 5 MPs. They're doing incredibly well with members, nearly 200,000 members, which they would say is more than the Tories.
OK, well...
They're topping opinion polls. I mean, for 2 or 3 years on the scene, they're not doing badly.
But, OK, apart from the fact that in 40 years they've got to a maximum of 5 MPs...
40 years?
Yeah, you know, all the
around 40 years.
No, all the Eurosceptic causes, they're fighting for the same thing under Jimmy Goldsmith...
No, they're not the same causes.
No, I didn't say that. That's the whole point. Nigel Farage has changed party many, many times, but the cause is the same, right? And they've got to a maximum of 5 MPs. They're so far off. Let me give you one other point briefly. You know, Nigel Farage, like all politicians, will eventually retire. And all these causes, we call it reform now, they've shown they really struggle to replace Farage as leader. And the other people that have stepped in, like Richard Tice, have been very ineffective, and they've had a few bust-ups and sacked Ben Habib as deputy fairly recently. They don't seem to have a plan for who will replace Farage in the fullness of time, and it might be their popularity peaks now and then declines.
What about Rupert Lowe?
Well, I don't think Rupert Lowe is a household name.
I don't think people do. Actually, they do know who he is. They're starting to know who he is.
Elon Musk, whether you like him or not, has been retweeting him. He's got 200 million followers on Twitter. He's been saying that Rupert Lowe should be the leader of reform at UK. So to say that nobody knows who he is a bit of a...
I didn't say that. I said he's not a household name. And frankly, you know, I rely on other people rather than Elon Musk for political endorsements.
Right, OK. Let's look at the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. To be honest, a pretty concerning story, if you ask me. The headline is, Prime Minister eases rules for illegal migrants. So now citizenship applications will be allowed and scientific age testing of illegal migrants, which is currently in law. I think it was a Tory piece of legislation. That's being scrapped. So it just briefly reads, the government is watering down border laws designed to block illegal migrants from obtaining citizenship and to force them to submit to scientific age health checks. The Home Office is repealing rules introduced by the Tories, which meant that small boat arrivals could almost never become UK citizens. It's also revoking legislation which gave ministers the power to treat asylum seekers who refuse to undergo scientific age checks as adults. Chris Philp, who's the Shadow Home Secretary, said the move was a total capitulation to people smugglers and would make the UK the soft touch of Europe. Linda.
Well, I think they definitely need to be testing the ages of the people coming over. That should never have been scrapped. That is diabolically stupid, actually. But citizenship applications, that's an interesting one. I do think that asylum seekers, the ones granted asylum, should be given proper citizenship lessons and should be able to apply quite quickly for citizenship. That's one way of integrating them into society. I used to run citizenship lessons.
But does a piece of paper mean they're integrated? I mean, there's British citizens now, I'd argue, in swathes of the UK who don't integrate, they don't assimilate, they don't want to, they keep themselves to themselves.
Yeah, but you've got to really enforce these citizenship tests. I know what's involved.
They don't.
Yeah, but then they've got to do that. You've got to
citizenship
start
test is not
enforcing.
I mean, the questions on the citizenship test, it's not saying anything, actually, that citizenship test.
No,
the test
I disagree completely.
The test of community is about how that community then gels and forms together as a community.
The community, I've done that. I led whole sessions on citizenship tests. They're very thorough, they're very precise. It's just that most people don't knuckle down and get them done. Now, this is a matter of enforcement. It's not a matter of strategy. It's a matter of implementation, of getting people to do these tests, learn this language and integrate into our country. It's not difficult, but it's hard work.
Well, OK. Well, what have we learned today, class? Mr Leo, front of the class, what have we learned today? Well, I reckon we've learned that the Prime Minister and Labour don't really give a toss whether these small boat migrants keep coming or not, because we started off the show by revealing that anybody with a child in their dinghy will be allowed into Britain completely immune from prosecution. We now learn, breaking in the last 20 minutes or so, that they're scrapping any age tests. So what's to stop, for example, a 30-year-old lad from Afghanistan coming over, as they do already now, and saying, oh, yeah, I'm 14 years old, getting plonked
You see,
into a
I'm
class.
sure that Keir Starmer does want to stop these boats. Anyone in their right minds want to stop the boats.
They could do it.
But the fact of the matter is you've got to get down and do it. Even if you had to bring the army,
I think they can't.
The Navy in, you would have to do that.
I think this is a point about they can't stop them, because the only way that they could stop is sort of bringing the army in. Now, that looks terrible. It's not a great look for Britain. The Navy, yeah, it's not a great look. So they can't. I don't think they actually can do anything. And this is where I perhaps think about the way that we deal with the EU, because this wave of migration is going to keep coming and coming, because while there is wars all over the world, people are going to move.
OK, I don't really care how it looks, getting the Navy in and turning the boats back in a very safe way, as they did in Australia, into lifeboat-style vessels. I don't care how that looks to the international community, because I care how Britain looks.
But hold on, would that work? To me, that seems ludicrous, that we have nautical confrontations with migrant boats.
There's always political, intellectual head-scratching.
No, would it work? It's not about head-scratching. It's about, in a nautical confrontation with the Navy, would people be at greater risk of drowning? That's not head-scratching.
Well, in Australia, the Prime Minister there, I've forgotten his name, in 2015, he did it overnight. They did a couple of boats overnight and they completely stopped. He won the election on it. So, yeah, it works. I mean, it's slightly... People would say, well, it's slightly different waters, it's different territory. They were, in Australia, towing them back to Indian Ocean Islands, Indian Ocean territory. But, you know, Linda, as you said, just do it. As the great sportswear brand, not other brands are available, would say,
just do it.
Just do it. You know, I think we're at a stage now where it's a national emergency. People are dying in the Channel. Kids are being washed up on beaches dead. Our communities are being changed beyond repair. Just do it. Deal with the problem. I don't think they want to do it.
I agree that you shouldn't be sort of intellectualising this whole thing. It shouldn't be about, you know, head-scratching and strategising and everything else. People are far too fond of that kind of procedure, and they are not concerned with working out how to implement a situation, implement a policy. And I'm not saying, you know, that I agree with this policy or that policy. I'm talking about the whole philosophy of enforcement.
But when you've got hundreds of millions of people moving through the world, then this is not just a British problem. It's not
I know
even,
that.
You know, it's not just a European problem. This is a problem about migration. So, you know, what do we do about that?
And of course, it was Abbott, the PM in Australia, back in 2015. We're giving you the chance now to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, as we have two amazing prize bundles to be won. Here's all the details you need to win.
The Great British Giveaway is officially 1 year old, and we have a birthday treat for you. We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month for a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers, £1,000 in cash? Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
OK, coming up next, the Mail on Sunday has just dropped. There's a massive story on there about Lucy Letby. I won't reveal any more. Stay tuned for that. But next, I'm going to be speaking to a man who's been victim of anti-Semitic attacks in Australia, where a sinister trend is beginning to snowball. There was a caravan found with completely packed to the rim with explosives. The targets were chilling. I'm going to speak to one of the victims in just a second. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Feathers McGraw, Wallace and Gromit's their villain, has become an unlikely hit at UK tattoo parlours. He's menacing.
He is, yeah.
And
in fact, he doesn't speak, and he's got this glove on top of his head trying to convince us he's a chicken or something.
And that is a real tattoo that someone has decided to have there. What do you two think about tattoos? Are they express themselves? Or?
I love it. So I've basically got Dr. King.
There we go.
Me.
Oh, there he goes. Nice. He's showing us.
If you can't fly, run.
Nice.
It's probably slightly more meaningful than having the villainous Engel.
Oh, come on, Trey. You want to get Feathers McGraw?
Maybe not. It's kind of got that kind of... You know when you go abroad and you're Beef or Magaluf and you... Tenerife and you get a quick tattoo. It's looking like that,
chest,
or like a pirate or something. It's kind of got that vibe, not for me. However, I do get the sentimentality around it. You know, some people have grown up on Wallace and Gromit and they love it and it has meaning. And he is a well-written character, so I get it.
Brilliant, isn't it?
I prefer my tattoos a bit more meaningful.
Bit more, yeah. I feel like, as well, there's a surge in it. Lots of people have had it, but then is it then going to become unpopular because of it? And how many people regret the tattoos? Apparently, not just 14% of people regret tattoos.
Wow.
See, I think that's where the meaningful side comes into it. I've got a couple of meaningful tattoos, and I know I will never get bored of them. Not one on my wrist, one on my ankle. They're not hidden, but I think because they mean something to me, I'll never get bored.
Yes, exactly. I think that's important. If you're gonna, a tattoo's for life, isn't it?
That's the thing.
It's got to mean
I haven't got
something.
Have you not?
I'll be indecisive. I think I'll get something.
I want to keep on my body forever.
If I had about 6 or 7 pints and then stumbled into a tattoo parlour,
you'd come out with
that.
Chaotic. A disaster could happen. Then I walk out. And oh no, I've got this for the rest of my life.
You might become addicted.
Well, let's hope not.
Some people do.
Covered in them.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Now, here in Britain, we've seen a steep rise in anti-Semitism since the Hamas attack on Israel back in 2023. And that sinister phenomenon, it now seems to be spreading all across the globe. The alleged targets of a suspected anti-Semitic terror plot have now been revealed after a caravan was found packed with explosives, absolutely packed to the rim in Sydney. Once the caravan was unlocked, authorities discovered explosives along with the address of a Jewish synagogue and other notes. Local police believe the caravan could have been linked to a string of other attacks targeting Jewish people all across the city. That includes a childcare centre which was firebombed and pretty much burnt to the ground and sprayed with anti-Semitic graffiti. And synagogues elsewhere were also attacked, with one being burnt down. And crucially, we're going to talk about this now, in a separate incident, Co-Chief Executive Officer of the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, Alex Reichin, was personally targeted. You can see the footage here on your screen. He was personally targeted with assailants attempting to set his former home in the Sydney suburbs alight. As you just saw there, some thug pouring petrol all across the street leading up to his house. I'm pleased to say Alex joins us now. Alex, good evening or good morning where you are. Thank you for your company. Look, I'm sorry to be speaking to you under these circumstances because the details we've heard here, not least the attack on it was your former home, actually, wasn't it? You'd already moved out, thank goodness.
Correct.
But
Correct, it was our former home, yeah.
There's something chilling going on here in Australia and across the world. But just tell us, please, what happened to you?
So what happened to me is fairly unremarkable. It's become commonplace in Australia where we wake up every morning and we see a new Jewish target hit. So on that occasion, it was my former home where the front facade of the house was daubed in red paint. 2 cars in the driveway were set alight, one daubed with F the Jews on one side and F Israel on the other. You could see there from the footage the fuse being lit across the street and 2 assailants getting out of a car and lighting it. You're talking about a quiet residential street in a built-up area. It could have been an absolute inferno. It could have scorched people in their homes. But it's part of a sequence where a synagogue was incinerated in Melbourne, a childcare centre was burnt as well. We're seeing cars firebombed. This has become commonplace. And as you've reported, just in the last few days, a major terror incident was disturbed by the police, which would have had a catastrophic impact on Australian communities.
Yeah, so this separate incident to your former home, there was a caravan that was parked, as far as I understand, on a street somewhere for quite a long time, maybe a couple of weeks. One of the neighbours got spooked, reported it to the police, or at least I think he towed it onto his property. Once the locks were taken off and they looked inside, it was completely packed to the rim with explosives. And I think the police in New South Wales said it caused an explosion up to sort of 200 feet in the air. A 40-metre radius. That's astonishing, and to me, that sounds like a sophisticated attack. And when you combine it with the kind of attack on your home, the synagogue, the childcare centre as well, this doesn't just seem like some mindless pro-Palestine thugs. It seems very coordinated and extensive.
That's correct. I mean, the people who are doing these things, they know what they're doing. They're selecting their targets with care. They're carrying these attacks out in the dead of night, undetected. And as a result, there have been few arrests. There are a number of theories floating around about perhaps foreign interference, regimes like Iran who have been known to target Jewish leaders and Jewish communities abroad, particularly through proxies like Hezbollah. But at the moment, we're engulfed with this, and the police and the federal government are overwhelmed, and there's a great deal of panic in communities. School is about to resume here in Australia. Parents are having very difficult conversations around the table about whether it's still safe to send their kids to school. Just a couple of days ago, there was a school in Sydney, a Jewish school, daubed with anti-Semitic graffiti, and you had school kids the next morning filing into class, walking past this hateful graffiti. We're in a really dire situation here at the moment, and it's something that no one ever thought we would see in Australia.
What's life for you now? Do you feel scared for your life? Do you look behind your shoulder as you're walking down the street? Just explain to us how you're feeling after that attack on your former home.
Look, I kind of take these things in my stride, you know. It's been happening for a long time. I'm not going to live in fear. It's just no way to live, and it's no way to live it as an Australian. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing to be feared. There are clearly people among us intent on burning Jews once again, intent on menacing this community and trying to drive us from this country. And I don't have the luxury of standing down or fearing for myself because I represent a community. And I know that's why I'm being targeted, because of what I say and who I stand for and what I'm seen to represent, and I'm going to keep doing that. There's no question about that.
Do you feel like the authorities are powerless to protect the community? Because I guess, if I'm being honest, it was only by chance that a shrewd neighbour of where the caravan was parked thought that the caravan looked a bit suspicious. Goodness knows what would have happened if that attack was allowed to be carried out. Goodness knows what would have happened if you, Alex, were still living in that home that we saw being torched.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of chilling to think about the hypotheticals when we're so close to a mass terror event and a mass trauma for the communities. And things like this don't happen in Australia. If one of these attacks was successful, it would transform this country forever. Look, I think that the police are certainly devoting enormous resources to this. There are helicopters flying overhead in predominantly Jewish neighbourhoods. If you can imagine a Golders Green or a Hampstead having choppers overhead monitoring the area, like, it's unbelievable to even talk about these things, but that's become the reality. There's a very visible police presence, but obviously the police always acting after the fact. They're seeking to catch the perpetrators after it occurs. But we've seen a long progression from the pro-Palestinian protests, from clerics inciting hatred against the community in the immediate aftermath of the October 7 attacks. And at every turn, the response of civil society has been silence. There's been no mass movement of support for the Jewish community to isolate these extremists, and the government has been slow and flat-footed in its response as well. So there's been a very clear, discernible progression from the sorts of words that were chanted to now seeing those words daubed on burning cars and burning buildings.
Goodness me. Alex, I'm really sorry to be speaking to you under these circumstances. We've had a 4,000 rise in anti-Semitic attacks here in the UK as well, and probably like Australia, we've had almost weekly protests in London where you hear all sorts of chants. You know, I'm not going to bother to repeat them, but yeah, it's concerning, and I'm really sorry you went through that, having to look at footage of your home, your previous home, being burnt down. And again, I know you don't want to get into hypotheticals, but you could have been in there. Thank goodness you weren't. And I wish you and the community very well down under. Thank you, Alex Reichin.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Oh, goodness me. Let me know what you think about that. gbnews.com/your say. It just seems to be going on and on, doesn't it? The anti-Semitism. Concerning, to say the least. Coming up, the front page of the Sunday Times. Sir Keir Starmer's chief aide isn't very complimentary about our Prime Minister in a new book. There are some, Peter Edwards doesn't like the word, there are some bombshell revelations to share with you in just a tick. Plus, our big...
When your government is doing you wrong, you fight on.
That was a nominee for the chair of the Democratic National Committee in the US. I won't reveal any more. You're not going to want to miss the full video. Back in just a tick. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into Sunday, it's going to be a cold but bright start in the southeast of England, often cloudy elsewhere with some spells of rain in the west. Taking a look at the bigger picture, then we have higher pressure out towards the south and east, a squeeze in the ice bars across the northwest with this band of rain. So as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, we have heavy spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, further towards England and Wales. A cloudy night to come here, but across the far southeast of England, clear skies, and that will allow temperatures to quickly fall to give a touch of frost in places to start Sunday morning. But across Scotland to start Sunday morning, it's actually going to be a pretty dreary day. We'll see outbreaks of rain, heaviest across the western half of Scotland to start the day, but temperatures still holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, a similar picture here, cloudy with outbreaks of rain, and that continuing across parts of Wales and down towards the southwest of England. Best of the brightness come Sunday morning is across the southeast of England. Plenty of sunshine here compared to Saturday. Now, we do hold on to cloud and rain across parts of Scotland, northwest England, but it should generally start fizzling out as we go through the afternoon and turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland as we head into the afternoon on Sunday. As for temperatures, generally around average, but feeling pleasant enough where you catch any sunshine. Now, through Monday, we've got bands of rain moving in across parts of Scotland. In the west in particular could turn heavy at times, that going into northern parts of Northern Ireland as well. Elsewhere, a largely dry day to come with some spells of sunshine, but the best chance of any sunshine is going to be on Wednesday, where higher pressure starts dominating. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. More front pages have just dropped. We're going to be getting stuck into them, starting with the I weekend. Most UK voters back under 30s migration deal in Brexit reset with the EU. You just get the vibe, don't you? There's stories here, stories there, polls here, polls there. We are getting closer, it seems, to the European Union. The Independent headline reads, Brexit contracts for IT firm at centre of post office scandal. Oh, this is good. HMRC extends £67 million deal with Fujitsu to tackle EU red tape, despite the company role in wrongful conviction of sub-postmasters. On first glance, you would have thought we'd learnt our lesson, no? The Mail on Sunday, and this is a very good one, which we'll discuss shortly. Police file raises new doubts over Lucy Letby guilty plea. Unearthed papers show nurse was off duty for a third of the cases. An expert says his research was misused in courts to convict her. What do you think about that? I mean, goodness me, could you imagine? The Sun on Sunday. You traitor. Wife upset at TV Jake and Work Girl. This is the hit TV show Traitors. The winner, Jake Brown, was confronted by his wife after growing close to a female colleague. Typical story from my former friends at the Sun on Sunday. The Observer. Betting giants under fire for targeting children, is that? Yes, who was... somebody who was bombarded with more than 1,300 marketing emails. Was it Tony Blair and Labour who opened the floodgates to gambling again in the UK?
Yes, it was, yeah. It was, wasn't it?
The Sunday Mirror.
Blackpool.
Farewell, Linda. A moving picture here from the funeral of Linda Nolan. Stars turned out in force, lots of names from the world of TV. And the main story, crackdown on AI child abuse, cases up 300% in a year. Minister Jess Phillips has given a pledge to combat it. The Sunday Times, Labour despaired over HR boss Starmer, Labour despaired over HR boss Starmer. So this, we'll talk about this now, we'll keep this front page on the screen. This is a new book which details Sir Keir Starmer's years in opposition shortly before taking power. Lots of massive revelations in there, including that Sir Keir Starmer's chief aide complained he behaved like an HR manager, not a leader, while the Deputy Prime Minister joked that he was so inept he couldn't run a bath. That's according to this new book, revealing the concerns about his leadership among his inner circle. So Morgan McSweeney, the Downing Street Chief of Staff and architect of Labour's landslide election victory, privately compared the leader to a human resources worker during a period of electoral difficulties and infighting at the top of the party. My panel's back with me, Lisa, Linda, Peter. Boris Johnson, Linda, infamously called Keir Starmer the human bollard, and it seems even his old friends in Labour seems to think similarly of him. There's an interesting line here. I mean, there's lots.
There's loads of it. It's great. It looks like a great. I'm going to read this book.
It looks good. One of the key lines is that apparently Sir Keir Starmer was thinking of resigning after that crushing Hartlepool by-election in May 2021. He seeks counsel from the only person who truly knew him, his wife Victoria, who said that he should stay on, and who was accused or revealed in this book of plotting a coup, which says a lot about what could happen now with this government. Angela Rayner. Angela Rayner. Linda?
Yeah, I mean, that is very worrying, actually. But what I do think, I think that actually Keir Starmer is a bit like an HR manager. He's like a technician. Well, he is a lawyer, and he's diligent and he's precise about a lot of things. That's not the issue. The issue is his lack of communication skills and his lack of charisma. That's the problem. The problem is that those things are an essential part of being a leader. And unfortunately, they're not well developed in his case.
Well, can I come in this? I should say, by the way, there's nothing wrong with human resources, and having a good HR function's a vital part
I said that.
of many workplaces. We're not disagreeing. But clearly, to be Prime Minister, you look for several other things on top. It's a gossipy book. Some of it is overwritten. Some of it is salacious. We all know, because of his background as a barrister and heading the CPS, that he wasn't party political for many years, and he's a complete opposite of someone like George Osborne, David Cameron, who'd spent their whole life in party politics, and whether you agree with them or not, had acutely tuned political antennae. Personally, I don't agree with them. I think he is quite managerial, and it's that thing about, a different man or woman for every season.
Yeah.
There are times when having someone sensible, managerial, calm, decent is good, and there are times when you need a bit of bombastic language. Most Prime Ministers have to do a bit of both.
Yeah, but he's got to get on top of his comms department. That's where he has to show leadership. He has to get the narrative sorted out for the Labour Party. And at the moment, it's not just a matter of presentation technique. That narrative is very, very squirrely.
Well, let me come back on that briefly.
Can I just ask, which bit of Keir Starmer is decent, though? Which is the decent bit?
Well, he's been a public servant for most of his whole life.
Why does it make him decent?
Yeah, because I would really take issue with the fact that he's decent. I mean, in 2011, he held 24-hour courts and put children in prison in the 2011 riots. Last year,
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
Children can't go to prison.
Well, it was putting children. They were holding 24-hour courts. He did that in 2011. He did it again in 2024. I would say this man is not decent at all. He might be managerial. He might be HR-minded. He's actually not a decent
Well, can I come back on that? Because I disagree enormously. So the riot were under the coalition, and it was a coalition government that changed the law, so courts did sit for longer. But remember, Keir Starmer was a prosecutor and the head of CPS, and it comes up a lot on this channel and on other channels, to be fair. It's judges that send people to prison or young offenders institution. Politicians, thankfully, can't put any of us in prison ever.
Keir Starmer was head of the CPS, and
but it is judges, and it's really important to be clear about this. Judges who are politically impartial, they're not involved in party politics. Let's not blur the two, or we do end up like Soviet Russia in the 1950s.
Actually, that's not true. When you have times of rioting or disorder in the country, it becomes political.
No MP can send anyone to prison.
You can't mix politics with the judiciary.
An MP can't send someone to prison, but a political narrative about that situation can happen.
Okay.
No, it's only a judge, not a narrative.
All right, I'm going to just reveal quickly some other details from this book. David Lammy privately bemoaned the leadership's lack of empathy for Palestinians after October the 7th, telling Keir Starmer's team it won't work to simply blame Hamas and mention self-defence. And also, so Keir Starmer, Peter, you said it's salacious, but I think it's quite funny. He hired an acting coach to help overcome his aversion to addressing crowds and wooden style in 2017. Well, I don't think it's worked. I'd get your money back, Sir Keir. Sorry.
Well, do you know what? I absolutely think that his technique, his actual presentation technique, has improved. But the point is, good presentation is not just about breathing and speaking and standing up straight. It's about the content of what you're saying.
Well, Margaret Thatcher did this 50 years ago. Remember, in 1974, she was dismissed by some parts of...
She was also hated.
Yeah, let me finish. But she had a voice coach, and she wasn't the Iron Lady in 1974. She became that over time.
Can I show you one more very quick story on the Sunday Times? Chinese viewed Duke of York as a useful channel. This is really bad news for Prince Andrew. Official court documents show that the Duke of York was viewed by the Chinese state as a valuable communication channel, and they indicate that MI5 questioned Prince Andrew's most senior aide about their clandestine relationship with an alleged Chinese spy. It gets worse and worse, Linda.
Naive, so naive. I can't believe it. I spent 5 years in Hong Kong and China as a foreign correspondent. I can tell you they must have been rubbing their hands with pity over this. Such a useful inroad into the highest echelons of this country for the Chinese, who regard spying as a kind of regular day-to-day activity.
Peter, what does this do for the royal family, for the King Charles and his brother? I mean, what a liability.
It possibly does nothing. It's a good story, and all newspapers, quite understandably, are going after the Duke of York because of his profile and his wealth and his status. But I think the king is probably reconciled to the fact there are going to be negative stories about Prince Andrew for the rest of his life. And that's why the king has tried to keep him on the sidelines to dial it down, because he knows this. And Duke of York has made colossal, horrific mistakes.
It's good news for me.
It's never going to go away.
Very quickly, you're a massive royal fan, aren't you, Lisa?
Yeah, I detest them. I think that they are the absolute pinnacle of the British evil class system. And so anything like this is great news for me. Let's get rid of them.
Lisa, I enjoy your company, but I just wish you'd kind of get off the fence a bit on this show, you know? Anyway, thank you. Coming up, the Mail on Sunday front page, including this Lucy Letby story. I really want to know your thoughts on Lucy Letby. I mean, I don't think there's even a conversation to be had. But apparently, on the Mail on Sunday, it's been blown apart. And take a look at this.
Venezolanos, los 451 nicaragüenses.
I'll reveal all on what that is in just a few seconds. Back in just a sec.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some pretty unsettled weather in central parts of the Mediterranean this weekend. Strong winds to go along with the heavy rain. Also a band of rain sweeping across parts of Spain, Portugal and into France as we go through tomorrow. Even some hill snow mixed in with this. But it's in the central Med where we have the heaviest rain, the strongest winds affecting parts of Italy, Greece, even the north of Africa as well. But as we go into next week, there will be a lot of dry and often sunny weather around. See you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Well, you know I like an auction.
Yes,
and I've bought some strange things at auction before you have as well, haven't you, Eamon?
Yeah, well, Ellie would throw this in the bin that you're coming up with now.
How about this? Admiral Lord Nelson's hair.
No.
Cut. I mean, is this a bit spooky? Cut as he lay dying during the Battle of Trafalgar, so someone's gone, oh, we'll just have a little bit of that there. In 1805, is on sale in Jersey, and it's a little cup. How much would you pay for the hair?
No, nothing. It would go in the bin, straight in the bin.
What? Even what? Nelson? That's very disrespectful to the British culture and heritage.
I think it's disrespectful that he lay there dying and someone thought, we'll take a quick stick.
Well, maybe they just had. Maybe they thought, you know, because there's obviously the famous painting, isn't there, of the Battle of Trafalgar? Maybe they thought we'll give him a quick haircut, and then they kept their £15,000, 15 grand.
Where's the hair come from? What part of the body?
His head, Eamon.
Well, it could be his underarm. I don't know. You know, it depends.
You would all right, let me have a little look.
You would bid
very
more.
curly. I think it's his. I think it's his head. It's his head. What?
You would bid more for his head than say his underarm.
Well, I think so. Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah.
Or anywhere else.
I would hope so. A little less whiffy there, the head hair. And there it is. And it's in a little pot.
No.
And the only way you can probably find out is if you DNA test it, I guess. It's definitely his.
Whoever pays for that is bonkers.
Well,
that's creepy.
I was seriously tempted to make a bid for a toupee, not for me, but as worn by John Wayne.
John Wayne's wig.
Yeah.
Why?
Wow.
Why?
Well, why I didn't get it was my wife said to me, that is not coming into the house.
Well, she's right.
She's
right.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to Ben Leo tonight. The Mail on Sunday front page is here. The headline is Police File Raises New Doubt Over Lucy Letby Guilt. Unearthed papers show nurse was off duty for a third of cases, and an expert says his research was misused in court to convict her. It reads, as the story goes on, a growing number of experts have voiced fears about the evidence against the nurse, who is serving 15 life sentences after being found guilty of murdering 7 babies and trying to kill 7 more at the Countess of Chester Hospital between 2015 and 2016. OK, there we go. Time now for Big Weekend Fails. So, if you don't know, this is our part of the show where we each pick a moment from the week that we think was a little bit of a fail, and we discuss it very briefly. This is mine. The Democrats in the United States are regrouping since their crushing election defeat last November to Donald Trump. Let's see how they're getting on at the DNC chair debate.
Good evening, everyone. It is my desire to be the next DNC chair, and I just want to give you all a little bit of something that's been on my heart here over the last couple of days. You fight on, you fight on, you fight on, you fight on. When your government is doing you wrong, you fight on.
OK, this is Lisa's pick. She has picked a rant from actor Brian Cox on Donald Trump. Take a look.
All right, I might be scared of where this is going to go. What are your thoughts on Donald Trump so far, Brian?
He's a
They told me that was the one word I wasn't allowed to say. And I'm so glad you said it.
Well, they never told me not to say it.
All right, Linda's next, and it's our friend James O'Brien from LBC.
I am not given to hyperbole, but listening to people praising Donald Trump for deporting people who are not violent criminals while he releases violent criminals into the population. Quite extraordinary. I think we've reached the concentration camp stage today.
Yeah, OK. And next up, it's Peter's. This is a Spanish minister who's falling asleep, Jacob Rees-Mogg style, at his party leadership speech.
Para vosotros en vuestra tarea cotidiana, qué versión de nuestro país. Como los 125.000 venezolanos, los 451 nicaragüenses injustamente despojados de su nacionalidad, para alcanzar...
No me gusta el español porque el profesor es antipático. So there we go. Someone just said,
I'm so impressed.
Somebody just said, Ben can't even read the English front pages, let alone understand what that minister is talking about. So there you go. It means I wasn't a fan of Spanish because my teacher wasn't very nice to me. Lisa, what's your favourite big fail?
I think it was James O'Brien, actually. Just compares everything to concentration camps every week.
Yeah. Linda?
I think the American lady. I really like that. Yeah. It is, as Lisa said, it is like just American.
I bet the Republicans are absolutely quaking in their boots about what's to come down the Democratic line. And your favourite of those, Peter?
Well, I was very surprised to see this Spanish ambassador falling asleep, but it's certainly a chilled-out way of dealing with conflict, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they do like a siesta. Panel, thank you very much for tonight. Leo Kearse is up next with headliners. Leo, what's in store?
Hi, we've got a cracking show tonight. We've got Nick Dixon on the show tonight and Lewis Schaefer, 2 fan favourites. And tonight we're going to be talking about Starmer easing the rules for illegal immigrants. And we've also got a Muslim charity in London that's been advising, people that control husbands are just caring, and that women should ask permission from their husbands before going out. And also to lower their gaze in front of other men. So it's strange what progressives like. They like that stuff. They don't like it when I do it, though. And we've also got a pole dancing troupe that's trying to decolonise Britain. You won't want them to get too naked. I've had a look at them, and they are funded by the Arts Council, so your taxpayers' money to the tune of 100 grand.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. No money for the pensioners or the farmers, but you can pay 100 grand for trans pole dancers. Thank you all at home for your company tonight. Really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you to my panel, Lisa, Linda and Peter Edwards. I'll be back tomorrow from 9 to 11 p.m. That's After Your Weather with Catherine. Good night.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into Sunday, it's going to be a cold but bright start in the southeast of England, often cloudy elsewhere with some spells of rain in the west. Taking a look at the bigger picture then, we have higher pressure out towards the south and east, a squeeze in the ice bars across the northwest with this band of rain. So as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, we have heavy spells of rain moving into Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, further towards England and Wales, a cloudy night to come here, but across the far southeast of England, clear skies, and that will allow temperatures to quickly fall to give a touch of frost in places to start Sunday morning. But across Scotland to start Sunday morning, it's actually going to be a pretty dreary day. We'll see outbreaks of rain, heaviest across the western half of Scotland to start the day, but temperatures still holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, a similar picture here, cloudy with outbreaks of rain, and that continuing across parts of Wales and down towards the southwest of England. Best of the brightness come Sunday morning is across the southeast of England. Plenty of sunshine here compared to Saturday. Now, we do hold on to cloud and rain across parts of Scotland, northwest England, but it should generally start fizzling out as we go through the afternoon and turning much drier and brighter across Northern Ireland as we head into the afternoon on Sunday. As for temperatures, generally around average, but feeling pleasant enough where you catch any sunshine. Now, through Monday, we've got bands of rain moving in across parts of Scotland. In the west in particular could turn heavy at times, that going into northern parts of Northern Ireland as well. Elsewhere, a largely dry day to come with some spells of sunshine, but the best chance of any sunshine is going to be on Wednesday, where higher pressure starts dominating. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
5 years ago now, we developed this campaign called Regifting Beauty. And Regifting Beauty is about giving back to those that are in less fortunate situations than the majority of us. And I was coming across people that were receiving gifts at Christmas. You know how many gifts we receive? Gift sets, items, bath bombs, all of these things that we don't necessarily use. For myself, they sit in the bathroom cupboard all year round. So I was thinking of a way how we can make that better, put that to better purpose. And we developed this campaign 5 years ago called Regifting Beauty. And it's where people can donate unwanted toiletries, sanitary items, skincare, perfumes, and we work with different charities around the country, and they will re-gift them to survivors of domestic abuse. And for years now, it's only really been focused around women. There hasn't really been a male focus. So Ben and I were having conversations, and we were thinking, well, and I was getting comments throughout the years of doing it, saying, why are men excluded from this? Surely it should be applicable to men too. I mean, in the UK, over 700,000 men are suffering with domestic abuse on an annual basis. And a lot of that goes unreported. And there's over 2 million people in the UK that do suffer from some form of domestic abuse, be it physical or psychological, and it's an important topic that we should be discussing. So this campaign is about providing something that may seem